Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having fantastic Mondays wherever you may be across this great nation or this great land. We have got a ton to dive into here as we react to the weekend that was in college football and in the NFL. I hope all of you had great weekends. I had a good time out in L.A., was away for a short little jaunt out to L.A., went out to Cousin Sal's Halloween party. Great fun there. And now I am back in Nashville for a week of radio, TV, and Periscope Facebooking alongside of writing. I love all of you too, as I happen to look over and see that one of you begins by saying, I love you. I also am... I'm happening to look at the comments. I'm a proud diehard Razorback fan. Pray for me. I know that feeling. Trust me. All right, let's start off with what happened last night. Sunday Night Football. The New England Patriots go on the road against a bye-weeked Baltimore Ravens and get run 37-20. And all of the hot takes are rolling in about Lamar Jackson as MVP, about the Patriots being old. Here's what I will say. I have learned my lesson about pronouncing the end of the Patriot dynasty, all right? Just let me reinforce for you what happened last year in the year that the Patriots, went to the Super Bowl and won it again. The Patriots lost 5 games on the road last year. 5 games. They did not have overall home field advantage. They were the 2 seed. The 5 games that they lost were all to teams that did not make the playoffs. Let me reinforce for you what happened last year. The Jags, Blake Bortles, beat the Patriots by 11. The Lions, an awful Lions team with Matthew Stafford and Matt Patricia, beat the Patriots by 16. The Titans beat the Patriots with Marcus Mariota by 24 points. The Dolphins and Ryan Tannehill won a game by a point, and the Pittsburgh Steelers won by 7. All 5 of those teams failed to make the playoffs, and yet the Patriots rolled on to a 6th Super Bowl title. So, the Patriots are now in their bye week. They are 8-1. I do not believe that this is a massive outcome in terms of what it represents going forward on the season, and further, I also am not overreacting to Lamar Jackson. I continue to believe, until I am shown otherwise, that he's a modern-day incarnation of Tim Tebow, that he's a modern-day incarnation of RG3, that he is a modern-day incarnation of Vince Young. And that if you are a running quarterback, no matter how good of a job Greg Roman has done building you an offense, at some point in time, you take a hit that ends your season, and also you have to develop into a passing quarterback. Here are Lamar Jackson's passing stats so far this season. Completion percentage, 17th in the NFL. Passing yards per game, 20th in the NFL. Passing touchdowns, tied for 15th, and passer rating, 13th. All of those facts, when you roll them together, maintain what I have been telling you for a couple of years now. Lamar Jackson is somewhere around the 16th to 20th best quarterback in the NFL right now. Is he talented? Yes. Can he drop back in the pocket on 3rd and 8 and find an open receiver? No, he isn't. And so it's not going to change. It's not going to change this year. May not change ever. I don't buy that you can make a living as a running quarterback in the NFL. And so I'm not buying into the Ravens as a legitimate threat to the Patriots. If I am a Patriots fan, and I'm not, I wish the Patriots lost a lot more often than they do, I would be nervous about Patrick Mahomes, presuming he comes back healthy, because this Chiefs team is really good, sitting at 6-3, about to come into Nashville and wax the Titans when Patrick Mahomes comes back. I would be a little bit nervous about Deshaun Watson, because I think this Texans team can be pretty daggone good as well. I like the weapons that they finally put around Deshaun Watson. I like the fact that they're protecting him. Both of those teams would make me nervous coming into Foxborough. I'm not nervous about Lamar Jackson coming into Foxborough. I'm just not. I don't believe that the Ravens, with Lamar Jackson as he is presently constituted, are good enough to be able to contend with the Patriots in Foxborough come January. So I'm not going to hit the panic button. I'm not going to overreact to one loss for the Patriots. I think we grow from here, and the Patriots will be the number 1 overall seed, and the road to the Super Bowl will run through Foxborough. Okay, let's go to college football for a minute. Big win for the Georgia Bulldogs over Florida. We got burned by a half point on the blood bank guarantee, but Georgia, I still am not 100% sold on this Bulldog team. Now, I do think they will win their next 4, although I'm a little bit apprehensive about their ability to go on the road against Auburn and win. But I think Georgia will beat Missouri. I think they'll beat A&M. I think they'll beat Georgia Tech. And presuming they can get past Auburn on the road in Jordan-Hare, then they'll be 11-1, and they'll be playing effectively a playoff game to get into the playoff in the SEC title game. And so as a result, as you break down going forward over this situation, Georgia, LSU, and Alabama are all alive in the college football playoff. Year 2 with Dan Mullen. Florida now eliminated in the SEC East, eliminated effectively in the SEC, eliminated from the playoff race. Okay? And by the way, I'm going to have to block somebody here because I sometimes look over, let me just say this for a sec, and I can actually see when you're all up in your feels. When you are obsessed with me and you obsessively send messages in the comments and I happen to look over, it really kind of makes me laugh to know how much I own your peanut acorn-sized brain, that you are obsessed with everything that I'm saying. And so I got to take you out only because I know how dumb you are. And I know if I happen to look over and realize how dumb you are, that other people who are watching the show have to be sitting there thinking, why is this guy still commenting? So you keep talk. You can say whatever you want. And a lot of times I don't notice. But if I happen to look over and I think, is that the kind of thing that a total pussy willow would put out on social media right now? And I might think once, okay, it's kind of a pussy willow thing. If it keeps coming, then I am going to wipe you out. So if I happen to look at you and I think, would a pussy willow put this out there, then I'm going to wipe you out. But back to Georgia. To me, the Bulldogs are not the team that Alabama or LSU is, but in a one-game scenario in Atlanta, in front of an incredibly huge Bulldog fan base in the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium, it's possible Georgia can pull it off. So let me go ahead and give you my Outkick top 10 right now, all right? My national top 10, LSU, I believe, is the best team in the country, okay? Second spot, I've got the Buckeyes. Ohio State has been the second best team in the country. Third spot, I've got Alabama. Fourth spot, Penn State. In the 5 spot, I have got Clemson. In the 6 spot, I have got the Georgia Bulldogs. 7, I've got Oregon. 8, I've got Oklahoma. 9, I've got the Florida Gators. And 10, I have got Auburn. All right, that is my national Outkick top 10. My college football playoff, if the season ended today, would be 1 LSU, 2 Ohio State, 3 Bama, and 4 Penn State. So we'd have LSU against Penn State and Ohio State against Alabama. Yes, I would not have Clemson in my playoff right now compared to the other 4 teams. All right, what about my SEC power rankings? I've got LSU 1, Bama 2, Georgia 3, Florida 4, Auburn 5, Texas A&M 6, Tennessee 7, South Carolina 8, Kentucky 9, Missouri 10, Mississippi State 11, 12 Ole Miss, 13 Vanderbilt, and 14 I have got Arkansas, who is an unmitigated disaster and is one of the worst SEC teams I have ever seen. All right, so those are my college football rankings. Now, Willie Taggart at Florida State was fired yesterday. Willie Taggart 4-5 this year, and interestingly, for a lot of guys who are at big programs, I asked you this question. It's ironic. At UCLA, Chip Kelly is 4-5. At Nebraska, Scott Frost is 4-5. At FSU, Willie Taggart was 4-5. And at Tennessee, Jeremy Pruitt, 4-5. I said, which of those 4 coaches at 4-5 do you think has their program in the best spot, all second-year coaches. And over 40,000 of you voted, and 43% of you said Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee. 27% of you said, and you can vote, by the way, in the comments right now on Facebook or on Periscope. 25% of you said Scott Frost at Nebraska. 5% of you said Willie Taggart. So 95% of you said something other than Willie Taggart at FSU. I think Jeremy Pruitt is the answer. That at 4 and 5, what Jeremy Pruitt's program looks like, they're in better shape than anybody else, although that could change because Chip Kelly and UCLA could still win the Pac-12 South, depending on how things break down. If they were able to pull off an upset over Utah this weekend, that would turn into a potential big deal. Scott Frost has lost his last two. He lost to Indiana and he lost to Purdue. When you are a football coach and you go 0 for 2 against the state of Indiana, and that 0 for 2 does not include Notre Dame, it's a tough 0 for 2 to pull off if you're a football coach in a football crazy state. So, what about Willie Taggart? It was early, okay? I think that the decision to fire Willie Taggart was early this year. I understand he's been awful. But the machinations being put in place like they are, to me, means that there must be somebody out there that FSU's trying to get to the front of the line to make sure that they lock up. Here are some candidates to me, and you can share your own, that you think makes sense potentially for FSU to hire. If you want a big swing that could potentially pay off really well, Lane Kiffin at FSU is an intriguing option. He's been recruiting the state of Florida at FAU for 3 years now. He is a great recruiter. You know that he's a pretty good coach. He could win, I believe, potentially at a high level at FSU. If you want a no-risk hire at all that will probably do well, how about Dave Clawson from Wake Forest, given what he's been able to do with the Demon Deacons, and before that, what he was able to do with Bowling Green? I think that is a possibility that's low risk. Somewhere in between, Mark Stoops has a relationship at FSU. I don't think he would be awful. The current coach at Kentucky. You could make a run at Bob Stoops, who came on my show a couple of months ago, about 6 weeks ago, and specifically said he would never say never when I mentioned FSU to him. So Bob Stoops and Mark Stoops potentially both being talked to at the FSU job. I think you could also look at Brent Venables and try to steal away somebody who's really good from Clemson, since you know at some point you have to be able to beat Clemson in order to win the ACC. What if you went and got the best defensive option from Clemson and brought him in? Other than those, I mean, there are wacky hires. You could go get Mike Leach. I don't think he would fit in that well at FSU. You could go a variety of different places around the country and try to get guys. And some people have mentioned Dino Babers. He's not necessarily doing that well at Syracuse this year. Doesn't have an ACC win. I'm curious who you guys think. I think you could go. They interviewed Hugh Freeze to be the offensive coordinator for potentially at FSU. I think that would be an intriguing move. I asked Hugh Freeze on the radio program this morning about the idea of going to FSU. I don't think Urban Meyer is going to go there. Certainly no harm in making that call and trying to get him to pull a Rick Pitino and come back to the state of Florida like Rick Pitino went back to the state of Kentucky to take over Louisville. But I don't think there are really a ton of great options. Mike Norvell would be intriguing. I actually like Mike Norvell better now at Arkansas because it's closer to Memphis. But those are all names that I think are out there. There's a lot of other people out there. Matt Rule, I can't believe that Matt Rule would leave Baylor for FSU, honestly. He's got Baylor rolling right now. I would think he wants to go potentially to the NFL. Matt Rule would be an incredible hire. The favorite, by the way, is Matt Campbell from Iowa State. That seems to be the guy that is garnering the most respect and attention out there. So all of those names are out there. PJ Fleck at Minnesota, you can talk about them all. It is intriguing to think what exactly they would do. But FSU, early move, it means to me they want to get somebody locked up before two more moves happen. Because I think beyond a shadow of a doubt, Clay Helton is now gone at USC, and I also think that Chad Morris, it's impossible to bring him back at Arkansas after what you saw happen with Mississippi State rolling into town. My hire at Arkansas. Two names that would be on my list at Arkansas. I wouldn't really want Gus Malzahn. I know he's the white whale for Arkansas fans. I'd rather take a swing at Mike Norvell, or potentially I think he could be a really good fit there. How about Mike Leach? I think Mike Leach at Arkansas would run enough of a unique offense that in the SEC West it could make some sense, all right? At least possibly make some sense there at Arkansas for Mike Leach. That would be my guy at Arkansas. In terms of USC, I think there are going to be two big names that they go after. And by the way, I think you have to make the inquiry no matter what program you're at on both of these guys. Urban Meyer at USC, and also I think you have to make a call and see if you can get him James Franklin. Now, I know some people are going to say, oh, James Franklin's career dream is to stay at Penn State. I think you have to make a run at him. He doesn't have much of a buyout. USC is interested already. They've made some inquiries. Would he be willing to leave Penn State to challenging job in the Big Ten East to take over the best job in the Pac-12? Maybe. I don't know that the answer is yes. I'm not sure what SC is going to pay, but those would be two guys that I would have to pursue. Remember, USC, ever since they hired Pete Carroll, never gets their top option. They didn't get their top option when they hired Pete Carroll. It worked out great. They didn't get their top option when they hired Lane Kiffin. It didn't work out that great. They didn't get their top option when they hired Steve Sarkisian. It didn't work out very well there either. And they didn't get their top option when they hired Clay Helton. So that's 4 straight coaching hires that USC has made where the guys that they wanted, they didn't get. So could they get James Franklin? Could they get Urban Meyer? I am intrigued to see who they could get. Somebody just said, why is USC an upgrade over Penn State? It's the best job in the Pac-12. I would always advise a coach, and a lot of coaches think this way also. Get the best job in the conference or in the division over potentially a bigger job. Let me give you an example. I would rather have, like Penn State right now, being completely fair, is probably what? The 3rd best job in the Big Ten East? And just being objective. Maybe you can argue it's better than Michigan. I don't think it is, not historically. The best job right now in the Big Ten East is Ohio State. Ohio State is by far the best job in the Big Ten East. I think the 2nd best job is Michigan. Why would I say Ohio State is better than Michigan? Better state to recruit in, not as tough of academics, not as difficult of a school to get into, being fair. Penn State, to me, 3rd best option there. Ann Arbor, close to Detroit, close to a major city. Penn State, kind of in the middle of nowhere, right? I mean, Happy Valley's a fantastic place, but if you are a college kid and you're from a city, they're having to pull you into a remote geographic location. Columbus, Ohio, great, decent-sized city, again. To me, that is the 3rd best job in the Big Ten East. Michigan State, also not an awful job, right, as you run through. USC, best job in the Pac-12 South, best job in the entirety of the Pac-12. So to me, that makes a lot more sense potentially to be willing to leave. That's my rationale for why James Franklin might leave. Not saying he would, not saying he wouldn't, just saying that's somebody you got to call. And by the way, I would say the same thing about FSU, because FSU is one of the 2 best jobs in the ACC. You could pretty much know that if you got FSU rolling, the only schools you would ever really have to worry about at FSU are Clemson, and that might only be as long as Dabo is there, and Miami, if Miami ever gets it rolling again. Otherwise, the rest of the ACC is cake. At Florida State, you should rip the crap out of everybody else in the ACC, like, frankly, Bobby Bowden did forever, and like Jimbo Fisher did for a very long time. So that in and of itself would be intriguing to see what's going to happen there. All right, let's talk about the Browns debacle. Let's talk about the Browns being an unmitigated disaster under Freddie Kitchens. There are so many different individual plays that I could point to, but at this point in time, all I need to say is Brandon Allen, who most of you don't know unless you are Arkansas fans, had never played a football game in the NFL before, and he came out and beat the Cleveland Browns for a 2-6 team in the Denver Broncos. Freddie Kitchens is so far in over his head that I actually feel sorry for Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry, and everybody else associated with the Cleveland Browns. This guy has no idea what he's doing from one moment to the next as the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. Baker, late in this game, and let me give you some stats on Baker, because it's sad. I actually feel bad for Baker Mayfield at this point, which is ridiculous. But let me give you some stats on Baker. Completion percentage, last in the NFL, 58.7%. Interceptions, tied for the worst in the NFL with Jameis Winston. Passer rating, absolute dead last among quarterbacks with 6+ starts. Okay? Baker Mayfield on 4th down late in this game against the Denver Broncos. Odell Beckham Jr. beat his man off the line of scrimmage. Instead, Baker Mayfield throws into double coverage on like a 3-yard curl directly in front of him. Passes incomplete. Game is over. Baker Mayfield has lost his swagger. He's lost the ability to feel dangerous. If you saw that outfit that he was wearing after the game, he looked as if, a bunch of different commenters, I said he looked like he had just gotten dressed out of the Lost and Found, like he didn't have any actual clothes, and he had to get dressed from the Lost and Found. A lot of you said he looked like a member of the Wet Bandits from Home Alone. Neither one of those is a good look for your franchise quarterback. And you know it's bad when even Cam Newton's like, dude, what's that man Baker Mayfield wearing? All right? And so, this to me, at some point, somebody has to be made the scapegoat, and I think it's likely to be Freddie Kitchens. I don't believe he's going to finish the year as the head coach of the Browns. But, how about that idiot Browns safety, I believe, who comes out and while he's still in his uniform, inside the stadium, he decides to get on Twitter and get offended by what people are saying about him, including Jermaine Whitehead, by the way, is his name, proud product of Auburn and the Auburn family. Dustin Fox, who we've had on the Outkick show before, good dude. He works as part of the Cleveland Brown pregame, played at Ohio State, was drafted, I believe, by the Browns. He said, Whitehead's effort tackling today is a joke. #Browns. Whitehead responded, come get it in blood, bitch-made ass, little boy. I'm out there with a broke hand. Don't get smoked, F-ass cracker. Not a good look, all right? And from there, it gets worse. He also then decided to send tweets to a bunch of strangers. One of the guys said that he still sucks, and he said, I'ma kill you, bitch. That's on blood. And so that's an intriguing move. Give me a time and a place you suck. He then tweeted out the Cleveland Browns practice facility, and he said, another guy said, just saw 2 for 110 yards and a TD. And then the guy, Jermaine Whitehead, responds, don't get shot at, little bitch. Can you whoop my ass? F football. Let me know when you need the address. And the guy responded, you'd probably miss. Well, Twitter had to shut down this man's account because he was violating all the Twitter rules by using racial slurs and also by going and threatening to shoot people on Twitter because he was all up in his feels immediately after the game. But what I also love about this, and by the way, the Browns released him this morning after first saying that they were going to handle it in-house. I just read you all those tweets. There are death threats, threats in general, clear racial slurs. This is pretty awesome. ESPN, you know how they would cover this story if the racial slur were directed at a black person instead of delivered by a black person. The headline, and they never quoted the racial slur or even mentioned it as part of their story, is Browns say safety Jermaine Whitehead's threatening social media post, quote, unacceptable. Nothing about them being racist. Nothing about them being, laden with expletives. None of it. They covered this story completely differently. And I just said, my guy, Dustin Fox here, who did nothing wrong and just had this player come after him for saying that he was doing a crappy job on the field, which he was. He works for the Browns radio network. Imagine the reaction if he had said a racial slur directed towards Whitehead. He'd never work in media again. He would be completely unemployable, and this would be the #1 story in sports for weeks. Again, all I ask, and I've been on this, and people get mad at me because I say it all the time, all I ask is that we evenly apply the same precedents and the same rules to everyone, regardless of their race, their gender, their ethnicity, their religion, any of their background. The important thing about, and I always think about this from the lawyer perspective, laws are designed to apply to everyone. The media should be in the business of treating everyone the exact same regardless of their background. I don't believe in preferential treatment because of your race, gender, ethnicity, religion, or anything else. And if you're going to hold someone to a standard of what is and what is not acceptable, then you need to cover everyone by that same standard. This is what I said last week about Earl Campbell. This is what I would say this week about this Jermaine Whitehead guy who's out here making all sorts of ridiculous statements. The other thing I would say, and I've said this to a lot of people, get off Twitter. Why? You just got your ass kicked in a game, okay? You are going to go watch the film and you're going to work to get better. Why do you need to go read what people are saying about you on Twitter? I don't understand this at all. You are a professional athlete. You just lost the game. You are sitting in your uniform going to see what people tweeted to you. And you are immediately responding to them, and you have cost yourself the ability to make $38,000 a week playing football because you decided to respond to a bunch of dudes you don't know on the internet. If you want to get on your phone the minute you come off the field, I don't have any problem with it. I still think it's strange. But if you want to sit there and respond to text messages from people who actually know you, that's different. Probably a bunch of dudes and girls who knew you that are tweeting things, texting you things right after the game ends. But the idea that you would go on social media, Instagram and Twitter, and seek out people saying things about you to argue with them is absurd. It just makes absolutely no sense at all to me. And it's more evidence of the debacle that has become the Cleveland Browns organization. A couple more things I want to hop into here. Somebody said, you got to upgrade to Periscope. Let me say this. I am in the opinion business. This is my job. I interact on social media. I talk for 3 hours on radio. I talk for an hour on television. Most of what I do is share my opinion, and I use whatever distribution mechanisms I can to get my opinion out there. But if I were not in this business, if I were a pro athlete, I don't think that I would have social media. And I 1,000,000,000% would not read the comments that people are making to me on social media because my job wouldn't be impacted in any way by what happens on social media. So I think that it's a crazy thing when you are a pro athlete that you could lose your job over responding to people you don't know on Twitter. This is, I think, one of the great flaws that players and athletes in general have been sold. It is the idea that you are a brand. No. You are not a brand. You are an athlete. Your brand is the excellence by which your athleticism reveals itself. There's this idea that you need to be active on social media all day long and everything else. No, you need to be excellent at what you do. I make a living doing things that involve social media. If I were a coach or if I were a player, I would spend hardly any time at all on social media. It makes absolutely no sense. It's ludicrous. It's just not worth my energy or effort. If I'm making millions of dollars to play a sport, I want to put my energy and effort into what I do in that sport. Kawhi Leonard's a great example. Your excellence becomes your brand. Kawhi Leonard dominated NBA free agency, never sent any tweets, isn't active on social media. He's just damn good at playing basketball. That's enough for most people. A tiny fraction of your audience is on social media. All right, this is interesting. What have I told you about the 2020 election? Don't get seduced into worrying about anything other than what's going to happen in the Big Ten states. This is the Big Ten's election. They may not win the college football playoff. They may not be the best college football conference in all the land, but the Big Ten is going to have a big say when it comes to 2020. Whoever wins the Big Ten states, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, those five, whoever wins those 5 states, you tell me who's going to win those 5 states, I will tell you who the next president of the United States is going to be. This is interesting. The New York Times has a poll of likely voters. Elizabeth Warren right now is the odds-on favorite to be the Democratic nominee. Elizabeth Warren is running behind Donald Trump in Michigan by 4 points, in Pennsylvania by 2 points, in Wisconsin by 2 points, in Florida by 4 points, Arizona she's even, and in North Carolina she is 4 points behind. Democrats have to win at least 3 of those states. Elizabeth Warren is starting off behind 6 points. I do believe that the best possible nominee the Democrats have is Joe Biden. The polls continue to reflect that that is true. I believe the most likely nominee right now is Elizabeth Warren, and if that happens, Elizabeth Warren, in my opinion, is going to underperform Hillary Clinton and lose to Donald Trump in the 2020 election. I think she will not motivate anybody more than Hillary Clinton did. I think she will actually motivate people less because she is a much more left-wing candidate than Hillary Clinton was. If I am Donald Trump or his electoral campaign staff and I am looking at this evidence, don't worry about total turnout. Don't worry about the national vote. Don't worry about how many people are going to show up and vote. The national vote doesn't matter. It's like worrying about how many total runs are scored in the World Series in a 7-game series. Every individual state matters, and this is the Big Ten's election. And right now, Trump is running better against Elizabeth Warren in the Big Ten states than he was against Hillary Clinton. All right. I love all of you guys. This is important, by the way. The polls typically are no more accurate the day before the election on state polls head-to-head than they are a year out. Most people, despite what you hear, have already made their mind up. Most independents will break in a similar percentage-wise fashion. And so I think this is a big deal. I think for the first time, looking at some of this data points, that Donald Trump is very likely to get reelected in 2020, almost exactly 1 year from now. All right. I love all of you. My name is Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. DBAP, unless you need to SBAP. Kisses to all of you. I appreciate you spending your time with this show. If you enjoy it, share it with your friends. Obviously, we also grab a bunch of different clips and put them out. I will be on. Lock it in. 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central, 2:30 Mountain, 1:30 Pacific, about an hour from now. Kisses from me to you. Have great weekends. Have a great week. Appreciate you spending your Monday with me. I'll be back. Television later this afternoon. Radio in the morning. See y'all. Gonna have to block this guy. Bye, Sean Mack. I'll see you guys. Love you. Bye.